everybody. I'm Ann Collins, and I am honored to introduce to you our speaker this morning, Robin Whitestar. I have to confess, when I volunteered to be the person who introduced her, I had no idea about her faith tradition. I just thought, okay, well, this was something neat, but I should meet her. So got in touch with her and said, may I take you to get a cup of coffee? No, why don't you come to my lodge? And I went, your lodge? Okay. So she gave me an address, and I envisioned this, wooden lodge, long with the, oh, no. It is in a neighborhood, and it is right off Solace Creek Parkway. It's the Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge. And the room that she has her individual sessions and her ceremonies defies verbal description. It's just amazing. You need to experience it. All sorts of Native American things that are wonderful, and I'm not going to go on any further because I don't know what I'm talking about. And Robin, Robin is just very interesting. She got her training. Her advisor is a gentleman by the name of Will Rocking Bear. She is not from Winston-Salem, and I'll let her tell you about that, but she's done a lot of study in Asheville and different parts of the country, and we are grateful to you for taking your time to come and enlighten us about your faith tradition.
Well, good morning, everyone. Wende aho. So, thank you. I'm not used to holding this in front of me. I think this is a grand idea to get together and have people share their personal journeys, and I'm very honored to be able to do that. So thank you, Truman, for your kind invitation. I had called this talk Following the Snake, and that's what we call it in the Native traditions as our life unfolds. So all of us are always following the snake when we're listening to our inner promptings, when we're being heart-led. And so none of us go in a straight line in our life. It's always like a river, going sometimes the path of least resistance, but getting there, wearing down the edges that need to be worn down, getting us to where we need to be in our life. So I had no idea at that time when I named that I would be actually carrying some snake medicine today, which is I'm shedding my skin from a burn that I had. So I'm delighted to be on video at this time. It's a great healing for my social self to just get over it. So anyway, I started my spiritual training at the age of 13, born and raised in Ohio, with a program called the Inner Peace Movement. Anyone ever heard of the Inner Peace Movement? Okay. It was founded in 1964. We got involved in 1968. And it was something that resonated with me and my family. It was all about that we are spiritual beings, we're energy, we can't be created, we can't be destroyed. All we can do is change form. That we have higher help and assistance to work with us in our life, that we all have psychic abilities or extrasensory perception. And all of this made sense for me. My grandmother had just crossed over, and I was really wrestling with the whole idea of death. And so when these teachings came my way, it resonated within me. Yes, this is true. The only thing that is different is that we drop the physical body. So without eyes we can see, without ears we can hear. We still have consciousness. And that was so reassuring to me as a 13-year-old that I hadn't gotten in my other religious experience, which was Presbyterian. So there's a conference center in Iowa, so I went there and took the youth training and programs and really just took off with it And so I started lecturing and touring on my own after graduating early from high school when I was 17. And that involved setting up publicity, giving a lecture in a usually a hotel room, conference room, and then showing people the techniques and doing private one-on-one counseling sessions. So
I'm Ann Collins, and I am honored to introduce to you our speaker this morning, Robin Whitestar. I have to confess, when I volunteered to be the person who introduced her, I had no idea about her faith tradition. I just thought, okay, well, this was something neat, but I should meet her. So got in touch with her and said, may I take you to get a cup of coffee? No, why don't you come to my lodge? And I went, your lodge? Okay. So she gave me an address, and I envisioned this, wooden lodge, long with the, oh, no. It is in a neighborhood, and it is right off Solace Creek Parkway. It's the Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge. And the room that she has her individual sessions and her ceremonies defies verbal description. It's just amazing. You need to experience it. All sorts of Native American things that are wonderful, and I'm not going to go on any further because I don't know what I'm talking about. And Robin is just very interesting. She got her training. Her advisor is a gentleman by the name of Will Rocking Bear. She is not from Winston-Salem, and I'll let her tell you about that, but she's done a lot of study in Asheville and different parts of the country, and we are grateful to you for taking your time to come and enlighten us about your faith tradition.
Well, good morning, everyone. Wende aho. So, thank you. I'm not used to holding this in front of me. I think this is a grand idea to get together and have people share their personal journeys, and I'm very honored to be able to do that. So thank you, Truman, for your kind invitation. I had called this talk Following the Snake, and that's what we call it in the Native traditions as our life unfolds. So all of us are always following the snake when we're listening to our inner promptings, when we're being heart-led. And so none of us go in a straight line in our life. It's always like a river going sometimes the path of least resistance, but getting there, wearing down the edges that need to be worn down, getting us to where we need to be in our life. So I had no idea at that time when I named that I would be actually carrying some snake medicine today, which is I'm shedding my skin from a burn that I had. So I'm delighted to be on video at this time. It's a great healing for my social self to just get over it. So anyway, I started my spiritual training at the age of 13, born and raised in Ohio, with a program called the Inner Peace Movement. Anyone ever heard of the Inner Peace Movement? Okay. It was founded in 1964. We got involved in 1968. And it was something that resonated with me and my family. It was all about that we are spiritual beings, we're energy, we can't be created, we can't be destroyed. All we can do is change form. That we have higher help and assistance to work with us in our life, that we all have psychic abilities or extrasensory perception. And all of this made sense for me. My grandmother had just crossed over, and I was really wrestling with the whole idea of death. And so when these teachings came my way, it resonated within me. Yes, this is true. The only thing that is different is that we drop the physical body. So without eyes we can see, without ears we can hear. We still have consciousness. And that was so reassuring to me as a 13-year-old that I hadn't gotten in my other religious experience, which was Presbyterian. So there's a conference center in Iowa, so I went there and took the youth training and programs and really just took off with it. And so I started lecturing and touring on my own after graduating early from high school when I was 17. And that involved setting up publicity, giving a lecture in a usually a hotel room, conference room, and then showing people the techniques and doing private one-on-one counseling sessions. So this was at a time when nobody even knew what the word psychic meant. Now everybody knows. So this was at a time when this was pretty groundbreaking, and helping people to get over the woo-woo of it. So it was all very practical applications. But I remember I was in Wichita Falls, Topeka, Kansas, and I got a phone call from the treasurer of the Inner Peace Movement and said, the police are coming to shut down your lecture. Just, be calm, and it's okay. And just, go with it. And I was like, okay. So I hung up from the phone call at the front desk and went back to the room, and sure enough, the police were there. I had done a radio interview earlier in the day, and I had mentioned reincarnation, and it was against the city law. So you can see how far we've come in tolerance and in understanding that there are many, many, many ways to a path of enlightenment. So that was my foundation, and I lectured and toured and worked at the different conference centers until I was almost 30. And at that time, I heard it was time to leave and do something else. So I moved to Houston, Texas, where my parents and sister were living at the time, thinking it was just a small stop until I kind of regrouped and got my next vision of where I wanted to go, and ended up being there for 15 years. So I started taking classes and teaching classes at the Jung Center there, and I had a hypnotherapy practice. And I was making a request to Spirit, God, Creator, whatever you want to call. And I said, I want a new spiritual path, one that's very honoring of Mother Earth and of the Divine Feminine. And it wasn't that the Inner Peace Movement wasn't honoring of those things, it just didn't address that, didn't go into that area. So I was leaving my office one day, and something glittered in the sunlight caught my attention. So I bent down, and it was a sparkly sticker of a dragonfly. Similar. And as I was picking it up off the ground, the same shape was in shadow, and I looked up, and there was a hovering dragonfly. Well, I knew enough about dreams and dream symbols that this was very important for me to pay attention to. And so I searched to see what dragonfly means. So I looked in all these dream symbol books and all this and couldn't really find anything. So I went to a metaphysical bookstore there in Rice Village in Houston. And it was an old converted home, and I'm pacing around, and the woman is busy helping other people and on the phone. And I knew something was there. I just didn't know what it was. So finally, I was a little frustrated, and I was ready to leave, and a woman came into the room I was in, and there were 2 boxes on a lower shelf, blue boxes with a bear on the front. Didn't know anything, didn't mean anything to me, but she came in, picked up one of those boxes, and stood in line to pay. So as I was passing her, I said, well, what is that? And she says, oh, I don't know. There's some kind of animal cards, and my daughter wants them. And I said, well, is there a dragonfly? And do they talk about dragonfly at all? And she said, well, I have no idea. Let's open it up. So she opened it up, handed me the book, continuing to talk about her daughter, and I opened it right to the chapter on dragonfly. So that was my introduction into the Native teachings. I'd never heard about Native spirituality. If I had, it was like, oh no, you have to be born on a reservation or have that lineage in order to work with that. But my good fortune was that Jamie Sams and David Carson had written a book called Medicine Cards, and it was all about Native teachings and the medicine, the power, the talents and abilities that animals hold for us that we can benefit from, let's say. So in the Native traditions, these animal beings are seen as our elder brothers and sisters because they've been on the planet for a lot longer than we have. So they have things that they can teach us about how to live a life as a sacred human being, which is in balance with all of life. So that started my just putting my toe into the Native traditions, but it really spoke to me. It resonated with me. And that language, I just couldn't get enough of it. It fed me. So then Jamie Sams also did a book called Sacred Path Teachings, again, a book and card set about all the different types of ceremonies and traditions within the Native purview. And then a third one was the 13 Original Clan Mothers. I inhaled that book, couldn't get enough of it. And it's all the teachings from the Divine Feminine through the lens of the Native teachings. And so my first teachers within this tradition were all from these books, but it went a step further, and I started interacting directly with my personal animal totems. And the animal totems that say work with dreaming, because I was very into dreaming, still am. And so I started introducing those facets into my classes at the Jung Center. And one of the first ones that I offered that was just completely on the Native teachings was working with the four creature beings that work with the dream time. And that is lizard, dolphin, swan, and dragonfly. So after the class, two older women came up to me and were introducing themselves and just expressing their gratitude and sharing that they were of Mohawk ancestry or were Mohawk, and they had been raised on the reservation very close to the Canadian border. And my eyes got big, and I was like, oh, no, you don't understand. I'm just barely beginning on all of this. And they said, no, you don't understand. We were raised Catholic, and we were not allowed to talk about anything Native. And this was just not, that was like 25 years ago. So again, we've come a long way because now a lot of these Native teachings are available and honored and being respected. So it hasn't been too long since some of the ceremonies have been reinstated because before they were outlawed. The potlatch ceremony, the peyote ceremony, the Sundance ceremony, things like that. So those things have come back and are revitalizing the Native communities. But I'm here today just speaking my own words. I want to make that clear. I'm not speaking for the Native community or the Cherokee people. My teacher was Cherokee, but these are my words. This is what I've gained from the teachings. So then, as I learned to drum so that people could do dream journeys, and I'm hopeful that today, after questions, we'll have time, I can just do a short drumming and you can do a mind journey. Yes, even here, after breakfast, in this place, with the lights on, it's okay, we can do it. So anyway, I started drumming, and as I drummed for people to dream, these mountains started coming to me, and they would talk to me. Come live with us, come be with us. We want you to come and live with us and be with us. And every time I drummed, these mountains would come. I could see them clearly, I could hear them clearly talking with me. So I had to find out where these mountains were. And so I was looking at pictures and didn't really see them up in the Rockies at all. And it was just by happenstance, right at that time, my sister and I went to a movie called Last of the Mohicans. Yeah? Anybody know that? Okay. So the movie starts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, those are the mountains. Those are the ones that have been calling me. And so we just had to wait and see where it was filmed. And so I said, North Carolina, here I come. So my son was very young at the time, and my parents wanted to move as well. They were retired. And so the four of us did what I call like a Vision Quest journey all the way down the Blue Ridge Parkway. We started in Virginia and came all the way down to Cherokee to see where within these mountains we were called. And so we chose the Hendersonville, Asheville, Black Mountain area. So a year later, we moved to Hendersonville, or Flat Rock, and I felt like I was one step closer to where I needed to be and where my son needed to be. So I was in Houston. I had started doing clan mother circles so that as women we could meet in circle and work with the 13 original clan mothers. And so I started doing that again, offering that in the Hendersonville area. And one of the women there said there's a lodge up north of Asheville in the mountains by a man named Will Rocking Bear, who is Cherokee, and would you like to go? He's having an open house. And I said, yes, I would love to go, because I have met him once at an International Dream Conference at Warren Wilson College in Asheville. And we had all walked down by the Swananoa River, and he had drummed for us, and we're laying on these big rocks. But it was an amazing experience. I had made a note, okay, someday I want to go to his lodge and meet him in more depth. So I hadn't had a physical teacher for a long time, and that was one of the things that I was calling for, that I really wanted. And so I went to the open house. He did a teaching circle, then he drummed for us to dream. And as I went on my dream journey, I was in the valley of those mountains there, up above Asheville, and this pod of whales comes swimming by. And I said, oh my God, what are you doing there? How can you be here? And they said, hey, this used to all be covered with water. This is our path. This is one of our travel paths, and we come through here all the time. And they said, what are you doing here? And I said, I was called here. And they said, yes, you were. You are where you need to be now. So when that dream was finished, Rocking Bear shared that he had some spaces in his weekly circles, teaching circles, healing circles, and I said, yes, I want to be part of that. So I came back the very next night to be part of his Monday night circle, and I did that for 17 years. So I would travel from Hendersonville up to CeeLo. Then when I moved to Winston-Salem, when I met my husband, I would travel 2.5 hours up to Circle. I would sit in Circle for 2.5 hours, and then I would drive home for 2.5 hours every week, because it fed me. It was something that I needed to do. So in these ways, it is an oral tradition. So all the knowledge in the books that helped me so much was an anomaly. In fact, those younger writers, Jamie Sams and Brooke Medicine Shield, Ed Eagleman McGay, they took some flack from their elders, because traditionally you don't write things down and you don't share them with people that are not of your tradition. So they listened to Spirit and were led to do that, and they had to do it. They had that inner prompting to do it, and I'm so grateful, because so many people have been helped who have an affinity for these native ways. And so there's a word for all of us who are not registered Native Americans, and that's the Rainbow Tribe. So all different colors on the outside, red on the inside, we say. Yeah, so there is that, something resonates within us that says, yes, I want to move in a different direction, not have a hierarchy or a linear path, but a circular path, one that is a spiral, a never-ending spiral. And so in all the indigenous traditions, they work with the circle. They work with a medicine wheel, the circle of life, because that way there is an equality there that you don't get with a hierarchy. So for us, when I pray, I'm praying to Creator, to Spirit, to God, and I'm also including in those prayers gratitude for all the beings in the planetary family. So the water beings, the cloud people, the tree people, we call them standing ones, the plant people, the four-leggeds, the winged ones, the finned ones, the creepy crawlers. All these beings are sentient in our view because they are comprised of all the matter that we are comprised of, and they have consciousness because they move and have a life just like us. So by including all of these beings, there's an expansion that happens and an awareness of how connected we really are. So that when something happens to the water supply in Flint, then or anywhere else, then I can do prayers for the water beings that come out of my tap and work with all the water beings in that way. So it is an awareness that we're so connected that what's happening on the other side of the world or in our own backyard is not separate from us, that we have an energetic connection to that. So in the course of working with Rocking Bear, I've learned many ceremonies and for personal healing, and so I work with people one-on-one for that. I also have circles. We do a pipe ceremony where we offer our prayers every month, the Wednesday night closest to the full moon. We do different fire ceremonies to honor the equinoxes and solstices. And then we travel sometimes to sacred sites so that we can drum and give back to the medicine ancestors. So it's a way of being for me that fits in that reverence for life and feeling that connection. One of the ceremonies that Rocking Bear offered the community that gathered around him was called Vision Quest. And Vision Quest is a ceremony where you take 4 days and 4 nights, if you're called to quest. You go up on a mountain and you cry for a vision. You're totally open and receptive. So you take only what you need to be warm and dry. You don't take water, you don't take food. So the people in the support camp eat for you and drink water for you. And that's how connected we are. Through intention, we can do these things for each other. So I've quested twice, and each time it was an amazingly beautiful experience. I loved it. And if I got thirsty, I just sent a message down, hey, I'm thirsty. And when I'm in the support camp, I hear messages, or somebody hears a message, hey, Quester's thirsty, let's all drink water. And so we all drink water. And then when I was up on the mountain, I sent the request down, a couple minutes, I'm not thirsty anymore. And I know it works because I peed all 4 days. But it's by that support, taking care of the physical needs so that we can totally be in that invisible, intangible, spiritual realm in order to receive a bigger vision than what we might be able to do in the course of our ordinary life. So it is powerful. It's an amazing experience. Well, the second time that I quested, I asked Rocking Bear to listen to see if he heard a name for me. So in the Native traditions, often there is a medicine name or an earth name. And I had received one from the clan mothers, rainbow feather, that I wore for many, many years. And at the time of my second quest, I felt like it was time for a different name. And in the Native traditions, many indigenous traditions, your name isn't just always your name. It changes as you evolve and grow and follow that snake, because we become different. We become something more than what we started out as, hopefully. And so he listened, and he heard Whitestar Woman. And so I sat with that name for a year to see if I wanted it just to be an inside name or to wear it on the outside. And I was told then after a year to start using that. And so now I go by Robin Whitestar or just Whitestar. There's a lot more I could share. Oh, well, let me just catch you up then, present day. So I moved to Winston-Salem and opened Flower Eagle Medicine Lodge. And that's another name for hummingbird. Sometimes they're called flower eagles. And so that was the name that came to me for that lodge. And it is in my home. In many of the Native traditions, we don't separate out our work from our home. So people that I've never met come to my home to do healing ceremony with me. And it's okay. I don't put my address on the web. I have a website, flowereagle.com. And so, of course, we have to have a dialogue there. And I can sense, I trust my perceptions, that they are honorable, they're sincere, they can come to my home. And so I welcome them in, we do that work. They probably meet my cat, my son, my husband, whoever else is there. So it's a relationship that we're establishing. And that's why most all of the work that I do is on monetary gifting. And that's a way of saying that it is up to the person coming to discern how much of those greenbacks that they share for what they're receiving. My agreement with Spirit is to show up and do the work. And I share with people, this is the way I feed my family. And most people are very generous. But it frees us from having it be a monetary contract. Oh, if I pay you this much money, I will receive this much healing. And it takes it out of that realm so that Spirit can really work. And people can come no matter what kind of situation they're in their life. We have people that sometimes come, they can't gift much, and that's fine. And then we have some people come, they can gift a lot, and that's fine. It all works out. So, and then sometimes people come later and say, hey, I worked with you 2 years ago or 10 years ago, and I didn't have abundance then, I do now. Let me put this in your hand. And I've done that with teachers in my past. The very first sweat lodge that I did outside of Houston, we didn't know anything about anything. And so we handed the water pour tobacco, but we didn't know to put some money in there too. And so I was telling Rocking Bear about that, and he says, it's not too late. Do it now. And I was like, oh, yes, I can do that now. So I found out the address for Mary Thunder in Texas, and I mailed her a $100 bill and said, this is for your brother who poured that sweat all those years ago. See? So one of those teachings that we're so connected, it's never too late. We're energetically connected, and we can take care of the things that come up when they come up. So I do this work here. I'm very grateful to do it. I have 2 apprentices that live over in England, and so I get to go there once a year, do work over there. They're mad for Native American, and so I'm really grateful to do that. They're a great group of people. And we go to a lot of the sacred sites there, do ceremony. So part of my vision is giving back to the medicine ancestors, those ones that came before us, prehistory. There's no record of them, but they are not forgotten. We wouldn't be here without them and the choices they made. And so we drum, we do ceremony, we say prayers for all those ones that came before us that carried such powerful medicine. And a lot of that's coming back now. So nothing is ever lost. It can come back through downloads, through divine information. One man I know who is played Native American flute, he would go to a lot of the powwows, a lot of the ceremonies, and would play all the traditional songs. And he kept hearing this song, and the flute always wanted to play it, so he played it one time. And elders came up to him and said, "We love your playing, we love the traditional songs, but that new one, elders sometimes don't like new things." So he said, "Okay, fine," but it was very insistent. He was at a different ceremony, and this song just had to come through, so he played it again. And this older woman in her 80s came up to him afterwards, and she said, "Oh, thank you for playing that song. I haven't heard that since I was a little girl. My grandmother sang that song." So I get chills every time from that story because he was listening. So it wasn't lost. Some of these old ways have been not available, and they are coming back. And so it's up to us to listen, to follow our hearts, to trust what we're hearing, feeling, seeing, and sensing. Any questions for me? Yes, Bob.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think, in regard to your grandmother crossing over, I guess. Could you elaborate a little bit on the death in your faith?
Yes.
If you'll repeat it so that everybody.
Oh, okay. So Bob's asking about any teachings around death that I hold through the Native teachings. Yes. One way we talk about that is dropping our robe. So this body is often referred to as a robe that is covering the real us. And so in that moment of transition, all we do is drop that robe, drop that body, and we're still aware, still conscious, still evolving. And there is not a word in Cherokee for goodbye, which I love, because there's this absolute knowing that we will meet each other again. And so all of you, I don't feel like you're strangers just because I haven't met you. It's nice to see you again. Yeah. Yes, Truman.
In your presentations over the years, in addition to those that are already sort of predisposed to have a curiosity, an interest, or a passion about Native American spirituality in particular, do you have experiences with people who come who are, say, from a traditional religious, etc., are there, but when they start hearing about you having conversations with dolphins or mountain speaking, etc., and just wondering how the response is and how people can understand that many of the concepts are similar. It's just from a different.
Yes, that's a good question because for the most part, I do interact with like-minded people, but people from all different faith backgrounds. Some from several come over the years from the primitive Baptist, who sit with me and say, even when I was 2 years old, I knew this didn't fit for me. And so they've had their own journey following the snake. Sometimes, though, people do come because their therapist has told them to come for a specific ceremony, and it's called soul retrieval. And it is a ceremony where pieces of someone's soul that have broken off and left are found and retrieved, blown back into them so that they can be whole once again. So some therapists that I work with know that their therapy can only go up to a certain point until there's nothing more they can do because those pieces are gone. And so they send them. And so, yes, I'm interacting with people and who don't really understand, but they trust their therapist. I give them some reading things about soul retrievals, and it's amazing how universal that fits for people when they're like, yes, I know there's something missing. I can feel there is something missing. And so they're willing to experience what is there to see. Also, some people come for healing, and being ill is the great equalizer. And so I see a lot of people who have not found any help anywhere else. And so they are totally willing to be open because their well-being is at stake. And so when we are really with our back against the wall, we really need help, all of a sudden, man, our heart opens, our mind opens, and then we are willing to experience something that we maybe never thought we would. So those are some of the experiences that I've had with that. And but what I like also is that for the most part, there is an awareness about energetic healing. Even right now through the VA system, there's many sweat lodges set up. They've pulled in native water pourers to do sweat lodge for veterans with PTSD, and they're having phenomenal results with that. So it's I have found overall the Native teachings are a bridge between many of the traditions that people grow up with, because it's not seen as in competition with it, or because it's so indigenous and of the earth that it is often there's an acceptance of it that maybe not from another religion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
How involved are you with this concept of integrative medicine? Because that's become a popular thing. A lot of people are going to integrative practitioners, which I think would include some spiritual disciplines as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And my sister was in a car accident this fall, and I came back early from England to assist her, and she's still having some residual mild traumatic brain injury symptoms. And so I recommended to her to go to a cranial sacral therapist to realign. So she told me last night that she went online and everything she could find online was debunking that. And I said, yes, but that's exactly what they said about chiropractors 20, 30 years ago. So it is a continual evolvement of people understanding that all these different ways have a place and a time. So sometimes people ask me, oh, you're Native American, so you must just heal with herbs. And obviously I don't. I don't have all that knowledge. But so we do more energetic healing. But absolutely, I do a lot for myself personally through food as medicine and homeopathics and herbals. Yes. Okay. One more question.
Okay, so you said your sister went online to search. So would you recommend when people are, if they're interested and open and curious and wanting to connect with a Native American practitioner, are there particular ways or things that they should be aware of, or when they're searching for, people that declare themselves to be?
Absolutely, absolutely. Rocking used to say people would spend more time researching their car mechanic than they would a spiritual healer. Yeah. So a lot of the people that come to me, it is word of mouth. I don't advertise anywhere. And but I do have a website, so I get a lot of healing requests from people all over the world, and we work with those in the weekly healing circle, and we do all that remote healing. So, but yes, especially with some of the ceremonies like soul retrieval ceremony, I advocate that people find out how that person was trained, what that took for them to say, oh, I can do that ceremony. Absolutely. And that is a concern with the Native elders, that people are doing, especially the sweat lodge ceremony without training. And it can have some major consequences, as we saw several years ago. Deaths occurred. And Rocking Bear spoke about that, and he said it wasn't that it was too hot or they didn't have the water. It's that there's an energetic level going on there that person had no training for. So sometimes we are tempted to do monkey see, monkey do, and that's why we need a teacher. So if we don't know something and we know that we don't know it, it's easy to find that information. We can be led to that, or it can come to us. What's harder is if we don't know that we don't know. And that's why we have teachers. Yeah. Yes? Okay. So I will drum for all of you. So just uncross your legs, get comfortable if you wish. You don't have to do this. I'm not going to tell on you.
Do you need to use the mic?
No, the drum will be.
So we use the drum a lot in Native traditions, and the drum beat is designed to help your brain to enter into a state where it can see and hear, feel, know. And so just close your eyes, relax, it won't hurt. And this is a dreaming journey. You can call it a mind journey or a dream journey. And it's just allow this drum, we call it like a canoe. It's going to carry you somewhere so that you can maybe see an animal totem or a place that is calming to you or that you need. Thank you. And so if you encounter a being in your journey, ask them, do you have a message for me? Because that's very helpful if you can have a message. And if somebody's far off, just move to them. And in the dream journey, all things are possible, and that's why whales can swim down valleys in the mountains and all those fun things. That you can be underwater and breathe, and so this is invoking your imagination. The imagination is the portal between this physical world and the non-physical world. When the drumming stops, that's your signal to come back.
that seems a little bit counterintuitive here, saying thank you and give applause. Thank you very much. Wonderful and informative conversation. And we'll see folks next time, first Monday of the month. And remember, I'll be over in the corner for